There are several win a league players in 2023 when I look at ADP data. We're talking about 5, 6, 7 big name players in the top maybe 35 overall that have win a league potential from their ADP ranking. We could find way more than 5 or 6 if we include the entire ADP, from top to bottom. But when investigating inside the top 30, there are 5, maybe 6 players that feel like, what is going on? Not just, hey, this is good value. What is actually going on? I have no clue why the ADP ranking is where it is for this player, but it is in its glory. You are looking at one of, if not the best. I'll say there's probably one other player that feels a little bit more valuable. Look for that video to come. 2 players specifically. I'm not going to tell you who they are.
Okay, it's Burrow and Walker. Wait for those videos. They're coming.
But those videos will be out very, very soon. Look for them. This one's on Breece Hall. This one's on Breece Hall and why he's going to win leagues from his ADP value.
Where's his ADP value, Smitty?
I'm about to tell you that and more. The Fantasy Football Show. It begins right now.
This is the Fantasy Football Show with your host, Smitty.
Take a lap.
On the screen right now, I have ADP data from Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code Smitty, link in the description. Get up to $100 bonus match, dollar for dollar, using the link in the description, which inserts promo code Smitty. But this is the best ADP data around. Why? Because people pay money to draft in these things. So no one's messing around. No one's leaving drafts early. This data is so accurate. But if we look at the ADP data and we take a look at the overall rankings, you will find down below, look at this man right here, 25.3. That is 3.1, ladies and gentlemen. Breece Hall, a guy that could be not just a top 5 running back, but a top 1 to 5 running back, is ranking at 25.3 ADP. If you're so lucky to get the number 1 or number 2 overall pick, this could be your 3rd drafted player. If you're even patient enough, and I don't know that I am, to let him fall to the 3rd pick instead of taking him at the bottom of 2, I don't know if I'll be able to control myself. You can win a league off this value, people. Win a league. This man was a top 1 or 2 running back at the point he got injured. Breece Hall didn't get going until week number 4, where he had 17 carries for 66 yards and a touchdown. Week 5, 97 yards and a touchdown. Week 6, 20 totes for 116 and a score. Then he tore his ACL week number 7, 72 yards on 4 carries. 72 yards on 4 carries, 18 yards a pop. Had the monster touchdown, tore his ACL. At the point at which he was a starting running back, in week number 4, he scored a touchdown in every single game, even his final game, and scored a receiving touchdown in week number 2. Now, a skeptic might come in and go, okay, he didn't get much run in week 1, didn't get much run in week number 2, didn't get much run in week number 3. So, Smitty, you're basing this, he was the number 1 or number 2 running back in fantasy football by the time he tore his ACL in week 7 based off of 1, 2, 3, 4 games? My answer is yes. We haven't even looked at his receiving totals. Talking about week number 4, where he had 17 totes of the rock, he pulled in the 2 receptions for 12 yards. The next week, when he ran for 97 yards and a touchdown, he had 2 catches for 100 yards. The guy's an absolute total yard monster. And while we only have 4 games to really look at, and it does feel when we reflect back on it, we had more like 10 or 12 games to look at, this man right here, Breece Hall, gave me enough evidence to pass my eye test that he is the best running back in fantasy football if he's healthy. Now, Bijan's coming in, another guy I expect as a rookie to do what Breece Hall did and was doing, proving to the world he's the number 1 running back in fantasy football as a rookie. I think Bijan starts to do that. I think Bijan at some point during the middle part of the year is widely accepted as the number 1 or number 2 overall fantasy football running back. I'll have more on Bijan. I'll do another video on Bijan. But this man right here, Breece Hall, he is going to, I think, take the league by storm his first year back from his ACL tear. Now, while you say, Smitty, ACL recoveries are a slow moving process, I don't care. I don't care what history tells us in general. I care case by case with each player. Adrian Peterson was an outlier, right? Sure, but ACL tears happen all the time at the college level. Players come into the NFL with recovered ACLs and they do well right away. The difference between Breece Hall and other running backs that have torn their ACL that I've been very skeptical about believing in their first year back, a la Saquon Barkley, I said stay away. He had a disastrous return from his ACL tear his first year back. Another example, J.K. Dobbins, I said stay away from him. J.K. was awful his first year back. Started to show signs at the end of the year, but my point is people drafted this man to be a potential starter early on. So what makes Breece Hall different? He was at that number 1 or number 2 overall elite level during his rookie year, tore his ACL in the middle of the year, so he's had a lot of time to recover. But it was a clean tear. He's also the youngest running back we can really remember that has tore his ACL while at the top of his game, at the top of the game. Meaning Dalvin Cook tore his ACL, but he wasn't quite the number 1 or number 2 overall running back in a lot of people's eyes. But he did tear it early, and he did struggle his first year back. I need to add that. But Dalvin Cook's a much more injury-prone player. This was a freak injury. Most ACL injuries are freak injuries, but it was a clean ACL tear. He's extremely young, and he reached talent levels already prior to the injury. And most importantly, he's ahead of schedule. Something I predicted would be said about him. I said, we will hear people say,
Smitty, he's ahead of schedule.
And what do we hear? He's ahead of schedule. What have I also said is going to happen? We're going to hear things like,
he looks like he didn't even tear his ACL, Smitty.
I predict those comments to be next. He enters into a situation where he's got the number 1 or number 2 defense in the NFL, putting him in good field position, putting him and Aaron Rodgers in good field position. This offense being loaded with Garrett Wilson, Lazard, maybe Odell Beckham Jr. by the time this video is published. Maybe not, even if they don't get Odell in New York. Lazard, Garrett Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, number 1 defense or number 2 defense in the NFL. Living in the red zone. This offense will live and pitch a tent in the red zone. Defenses won't be game planning against Breece Hall. They'll be game planning against Aaron Rodgers in the passing attack. His first 8 games are going to be wide open rushing lanes, wide open receiving territories, and he's going to play that Aaron Jones role for Aaron Rodgers. The explosion he might not have 100% in week 1. He'll have wide open rushing lanes to accommodate that. And by midseason, if defenses start keying on him more than they key on the offense or try to do some kind of like joint focus on Hall and the passing attack, he's going to be more on track for being 100% at that moment in time. By week 8 or 9, he will look full go. In weeks 1 through 8, you might not know he's not full go because the offense is going to cater to him. And I'm not even saying he's going to look like he's lesser. This is, again, one of the youngest examples of a torn ACL from a player at the top of his game, at the top of the NFL game. It's almost like he tore his ACL coming into the pros like we've seen before. It's going to be a phenomenal recovery. It will be very Adrian Peterson-like. Not that he's going to run for a 2,000-yard season. I'm not trying to compare the exact seasons, but the recovery. Comeback player of the year, if Hamlin doesn't win it hands down just because Breece Hall could win comeback player of the year. I wouldn't be shocked one single bit if this guy runs for 1,300 plus yards on the ground his first year back from an ACL tear. If this guy runs for 8 to 10 touchdowns on the ground his first year back from an ACL tear. And I wouldn't be shocked one single bit if he pulled in over 40 or 50 receptions his first year back from an ACL tear, totaling 300 to 400 yards and 3 to 4 touchdowns. A 12 total touchdown season, 40 to 50 receptions, 1,500 to 1,700 total yards. Breece Hall is 100% Smitty approved.
You've just been Smitty approved.
Breece Hall is 8 foot tall. He will always answer the mother freaking call. Don't let him fall. In the third, don't stall. Just give Batman the freaking football.
He's Breece. He's Breece.
He does a whole of a job. A whole of a job. A whole of a job.
Breece Hall, please report to the moon.
He does a hell of a job.
Get Breece.
Get ready for it. You want to win a league? This is your guy. You want to win a league? Draft Breece Hall at the bottom of round 2 or top of round 3. There's no safer value. I don't want to hear about ACL recoveries. Oh, is it going to be a slow recovery? Why are you trusting him? We're talking about packaged and baked in value. I don't know that there's a better value at the running back position than Breece Hall, who's 8 foot tall.
This is the Fantasy Football Show with your host, Smitty.